Welcome back, pod people. My guests today are Andy Buchan, the writer-director of Siege at Nune High, a sort of kids defending a school from an invasion, sort of like Assault on Precinct 13, except set in a school. And I've also got Cassidy Buchan, one of the actors from it, and Amy Sands, another of the actors from the film here. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
So I really enjoyed Siege at Nune High. I've seen a lot of films made by people in your age range where, since the people listening to this can't see, 2 out of the 3 people that I'm talking to are kids. And I've got to say, for being a film primarily made by younger people like that, I was really impressed with the production quality and the acting in it. I've seen individual child actors in other things who did a really good job, and I've seen lots of stuff made by kids that I really enjoyed, but this was a really impressive level of like realism in the performances and quality in the cinematography and the editing and all of that. And so to get us started, could you just talk a bit about how all that came together, how you did the casting? I'm going to assume that, Andy, you did most of the editing and things like that yourself. Is that the case?
So most of the post-production was done by me, the editing, sound, and grade, and so on. But yeah, on the shoot, all the cameras were operated by teenagers, and the sound equipment was operated by teenagers, and so on. To set out what it was. I'm not a child. I don't know if that's coming across that way in the podcast. I was late 30s when I started, and I'm 41 now. But I'm a film teacher. I teach film to children aged 14 to 16. And I was surrounded by willing and keen students who didn't really know how to use the equipment or really know how to make films, as that's why they're doing film GCSE. And so they wanted to learn. So I guess when I was working with them, it was more of like a learning experience for the crew, as well as actually making a film.
So was this at a specialty arts school or just like a film elective taught at an ordinary school?
No, so I don't know how much you're aware of like the English school system. I'm sure you're not aware of it at all.
Not very much, no.
So we have GCSEs is our end of year exams when you're 16, end of school exams, GCSEs.
Okay.
And some of those you have to do, like English, maths, and science, and some of those you can choose to do. And one of the ones you can choose to do is GCSE film studies, which has a film element to it. And I've taught that for like 15 years before it was just I had to make my film, really. And these were the sort of students I was surrounded with all the time.
Awesome. So that didn't quite answer my question. Perhaps the structure is different enough that my question doesn't make sense. But is this like a specialty arts school that focuses in America? There are some secondary schools like this where it's just a big school and there's a lot of like you could take Latin, you could take dance, you could take film, but also it's just an ordinary school. But also there are some where it's like this is a dance school and everybody that is there to study dance. So is this like
this is just a regular school. I mean, there's lots of schools, even in Brighton, which also teach film studies. But I think this is probably the only school where something like this has happened that I know of. It wasn't a school project. It was seen as an independent film made with the backing of the school and with the students and the staff there. But film studies, it's not huge, There's 1,600 kids at the school, 1,700 kids at the school,
Okay.
and 60 do film, so it's not like something that people are thinking about all the time.
Okay.
And we also had children involved who were as young as, I'd say, 12, maybe 13, who they weren't doing the course, but they were just really interested in making films and they wanted to get involved.
Cool. Yeah. So how did getting permission to do that? Did you film at the school that you taught at, that you teach at?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did getting permission in particular, I noticed like a lot of things got destroyed during the film. How did permission to do all of that come about?
Yeah. Well, so it starts off with, I've obviously got a relationship with the head and the governors and so on. So I asked them, can I make a film at the school? And they said, yes, that's fine. Um, and I didn't really give them any details.
Oh, always a wonderful strategy.
And then I'll tell you another piece of advice is, if they're, and anyone can do this as well, is if you're going to film a location and they want to know a little bit more about it, you can keep it vague, and then you say, oh, well, you can read the script if you want, and then hand them a huge stack of paper, and they're just like, no, it's fine, because they don't want to read it. And that's what happened there, and they just said it was fine. Really, the main plan was just not to bother anybody. We filmed in the evenings, we filmed on Saturdays, and we didn't really want to bother. I mean, I'm sure we did bother people, but the plan was not to bother anyone. That way, they didn't really ask any questions about what we were doing. The one time I can remember us getting told off, and maybe we should let them know about some of the stuff, was after the bit where the science room gets smashed up, and there was quite a lot of glass broken. I cleaned it up. We thought we'd got it all, but on Monday there were kids complaining about there being broken glass everywhere. And after that, we had to be a little bit more careful, and they were a bit more curious about what we were doing and how we were, smashing things up, really.
Yeah, the cleanup of that was the thing I was going to ask you about next. Oh, that's great. Um, so one of the things that I first noticed, and I think will stand out the most to anyone watching it, is that almost all of the movie is in black and white, which creates this sort of unreality feeling to it. And then the only parts that are in color, or at least the only parts that I noticed, are when they're taking cell phone footage of things. That's in color, which creates this sort of hyper reality to that element of it, which got me thinking about how things that are on the internet can seem more real than things that are actually happening in real life, and got me wondering, what was there an intended, like, what was the intended artistic message there, and how did you think of that? Who thought of that? um yeah, I thought that was a really interesting visual choice.
Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, I'm going to ask you a question, but I'd like to know what you thought about the black and white. And I'm going to ask Amy something here, because I told the students as we were filming quite early on that it was probably going to be in black and white. It was an idea I'd had quite early on. And some of them, including Amy, said, no, don't do this. No one will watch a black and white film. Nobody wants to see a black and white film. Please don't do this. So what you think about it, how it looks in the end?
Well, yeah, he is right. At first, I was very against it being in black and white, and he tried to convince us, and we weren't having it. We didn't like it at all at first, like the idea of it, even though we hadn't even seen it in black and white, because when we were watching clips of it before it was fully edited, we were watching it in color, and I think that's what was stuck in my head, it in color, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I don't know why I thought the black and white would ruin it, because it didn't. And in the end, I think it was really cool. And with the, like you were saying about how it's only in color when it's on the phone, I think it just made such a big contrast. So then it just made it so much more like different between the two. So I think in the end, putting it in black and white was a good idea. And I did like it in the end. And you were right, basically.
Yeah, so to answer your question, there's essentially three reasons why it's in black and white. Narratively, it's exactly as you pointed out. It's, the film's plot is about a gang of masked, probably teenagers, but the mask cover their face, so we don't really know who they are. Completely masked individuals who feel like they've been downtrodden in life and want to just smash and destroy and fight back. Essentially, IRL internet trolls. This is really what we're talking about here. We're talking about people who have all got together on the internet, riled themselves up, and then gone out to cause trouble. So phones and mobile footage, social media footage is an important part of that. And I sort of wanted it to pop out. So that's why that's in color and the rest is in black and white. So narratively it works. Technically, we also had, we know, the youngest people operating cameras are 12 years old. We had good quality cameras, which, we had lots of settings and so on. And quite often we would film with two cameras at the same time, just for speed. And the first thing I would do is I would say, right, all you three who are operating this camera, go and look at the other camera to make sure they look exactly the same. And they say, yes, they do. And then I'd go and they look exactly the same. And I go, brilliant. Then we'd start filming and I'd come home and someone's messed with the temperatures and one looks very blue and one looks very orange. And without black and white, it would have been an absolute nightmare to make those two match.
That makes sense.
So the second reason, technically, and then the third reason, and I think this is quite, I do sort of advise people to do this as well. If you're making a film that is cheap, you should lean into it. You shouldn't try to pretend you're spending loads and loads of money. You shouldn't try and make this look like, the plot. It could be big. It could be epic. People attacking a school. The threat of burning down a school is always there. It could be huge. This film could be a huge thing, but because it's a film which is sort of cheap and raw and rough, we're leaning into the rough. So it looks black and white. So people, it's how it's supposed to look. People see cheap films, they think they're black and white, and they go, well, I can accept this now for what it is. So if you're seeing something which is not so, maybe something a shot's out of focus or whatever, just it being black and white makes you feel more at ease with that, I think.
Yeah. That's an interesting perspective. I definitely agree that somebody who's making a low budget film should lean into that aspect of it. And yet still most of the modern low budget films I see are not in black and white. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm 41. And so when people were making black and white films, when I was younger and I was interested in making films, they were made in film. So black and white literally was the cheaper choice.
Yeah.
This was not. It was made digitally, but then made to look like black and white. I put a film grain on it. I wanted it to look like those old Man Bites Dog, things like that. I wanted it to look like those old rougher films,
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's quite a comparison. Have either of you, Cassidy and Amy, have you seen Man Bites Dog?
No.
Can't say I have.
It's a French film about a film crew following a serial killer around and like recording him doing his killings and like interviewing him and things like that. It's a pretty wild film.
Yeah. But it looks good.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean the two movies that reminded me of were Assault on Precinct 13 and Night of the Living Dead, which was another film that was made after black and white had fallen out of the mainstream, but was made in black and white in order to, help cover up how cheap it was.
Yeah.
So yeah. So as an American watching this, I found myself wondering about how different the perspective of a British person watching this movie would be, because I noticed two things that definitely seemed like they would probably be perceived differently. One is that like at one point the kids are talking about whether one of the characters is posh or not, which means like rich and upper class. And I'm assuming that as British people, you each have like different accents that you guys can tell the difference between. Whereas to my ear, you're all just, British. And And I can't go like, oh yes, that's a posh accent and that's a lower class accent. So was that an aspect of this? Like, do the kids have different accents that a British audience would be picking up on?
Yeah, so Cassidy, as you can see and people can hear now, is who played Ernie, is now a big, deep voiced, teenager. But at the time, he wasn't, and he was 12 years old, slightly higher voiced, slightly probably better spoken than he is now. Um, and I definitely, I think his you weren't consciously come forward. You weren't consciously being a posher character, were you?
No.
I don't think.
I think it just suited my role pretty much to be like a posh, like nerdy character, and that's how I spoke. And obviously, Amy is probably quite a lot posher than me and my father as well. So, yeah, you
Amy is posher than us.
I'll say she's pretty is.
More polite.
Okay, that's an insult.
Yeah, I suppose I don't really think about that. An American audience picking up on the different sort of voice types. I mean, we all live within about 3 miles of each other generally, so it's not like our accents are going to move that far apart.
All right.
Yeah.
So the bit where the character is accusing the other character of being posh there wasn't actually much basis to that accusation for the character to be making that.
Well, I mean, what are your thoughts, Cass? Because you were in that. Why did you think he was calling you posh?
I mean, he said you just seem like a bit of a posh twat. It's basically what I can gather from that is like just the way I acted, the fact that I go to science club, and just sort of like the way I speak, and obviously like just the way I sort of act. And he's obviously like a rough character who doesn't really think a lot and is quite stupid. So he's
Yeah.
I think probably,
exactly. Yeah.
that Dane would see Ernie like that, and I don't think Ernie really was posh.
No.
I don't think that would be the right word, but it's just because they were such different characters that's maybe something that he would say.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, so speaking of that conflict between those two characters, there's a recurring bit where one of the kids, and I apologize, I don't generally remember the names of any of the characters in most movies that I watch. I just remember their relationships and roles in the story. There's a recurring bit where one of the kids is accusing the other one of like stuffing him in a locker or something to that effect. And then the bully character denies it. And at first I thought that the first kid was telling the truth and the bully was just lying when he denied it, because the first few times they have that conversation, it's around the teacher. So there's an authority figure. It makes sense why he would lie in that situation. But then later on, they have that same interaction when it's just the two of them. And so that made me wonder, like, I don't remember this ever getting resolved. Like, do we find out, did that actually happen? And if so, why was the kid lying about it when there was no one else around to believe the lie? And if not, why was the first kid accusing him of it?
Well, I think what's happened here is you don't spend enough time with teenagers in a sense in a school. Neither child was lying.
Okay.
Ernie, who was put in a cupboard by Dane, was thrown in a cupboard and the door was shut. In his eyes, he is now locked in a cupboard. But Dane, who put him in the cupboard, needs everyone to know this very precise distinction that he did not lock it.
Okay.
When you're accusing of locking someone in the cupboard, he is outraged because that is a lie in his eyes. Grabbing someone by their arm, throwing them in a cupboard, shutting the door, all of that he would readily admit. But the fact that people are saying you locked me in a cupboard, that is what is outraging him. And that sort of thing you would hear in a British school regularly. Say, you threw an apple on the floor. I didn't throw an apple on the floor. I dropped an apple on the floor, and they do not like the accusation.
Okay. Yeah, I fully admit to not being around a lot of teenagers frequently, and so I'm gonna miss out on some of those aspects. Another bit of sort of culture clash that I had when watching this as an American is that so this movie is about teenagers being violent at a school, but
Yeah.
using like clubs and knives and stuff. And so there were a few moments where my reaction was sort of like, "Oh, that's adorable. No one's gonna pull a gun?" Like, because in America, people don't attack a school with clubs and knives, they attack a school with guns. And so I found myself really, like, having to force myself to think of things as though I were living in that society where that's not a thing. And it really got me wondering, like, I don't think you could make this kind of movie in America because one, the immediate reaction of everyone would be, why does no one have a gun? Because someone would definitely, like, I mean, the people attacking the school would use guns, and there would probably be a school resource officer on the campus who would have a gun. And that would sort of elevate the stakes in a way that I don't think would work for the story, where it would, like, in this, you can have a fight with someone who has a club and you get hurt, but you don't get seriously hurt and you don't die. Whereas if you have a fight with someone who has a gun, either you get incredibly lucky and that doesn't happen, or someone gets like killed, or it becomes like an over the top action film, which isn't really what you were going for. And so I'm I'd love to hear your thoughts about this sort of cultural distinction that we've got here.
I mean, I 100% agree. I don't think you could make it in America for the reasons you've said. I think culturally, we're not really running around shooting each other in Britain much. Occasionally, someone will shoot someone, but it doesn't happen on the same sort of scale. And I realise also that the idea of a school invasion, probably to like your American listeners, sounds very different to what comes across in the film. You know,
Yeah.
I also, as a filmmaker, I'm wary of guns. I feel like they're not. Obviously, they're realistic. People do use guns, but I feel that with a gun, you sort of your jeopardy's taken out, especially in films. When people shoot a gun, it hits the person they're supposed to hit every time, and that's sort of it, you know. Whereas if you think about a film like, say, Friday the 13th, no one's
Mhm.
got a gun in that. People are all being killed. People are using weapons, but because of where they are, stuck out in an old camp, there's no guns. I just think that's a bit more sort of dramatic. I mean, I suppose it could be done in a way in America, but you'd have to think about how you're making it so nobody has any guns. But I think culturally, the idea of a school invasion probably wouldn't go down as well as a sort of like teenage action comedy horror that we've made. You know, I don't think it's quite as light-hearted there as this idea maybe here.
Yeah, yeah. I agree that I think lighthearted is a good description of this, that it's not, I mean, to me at least, it didn't come across as a comedy. Like, nobody's slipping on a banana peel, and there isn't like a slide whistle effect when somebody gets knocked down or anything like that. Um, it's a movie that has funny moments in it, but it did seem serious. And yeah, it's interesting to me to think about the level of seriousness that the movie has to sort of walk the line of, and how it's much easier to do that in the cultural context that you made it in. The other movie that it reminded me of, not because they're similar, but because they're different, is I think the name of it was Zero Day, which is a found footage film about two school shooters who, like, it's their video diary of them planning the school shooting before they go and do it. And that's a very, like, serious, dramatic horror film. Um, and it got me thinking that, like, I don't, like, I mean, you could make Zero Day set in Britain and they use like pipe bombs or something instead of using guns, but I don't think you could make Siege at Noon High in America without dramatically changing it like that. So yeah, it was really when I watch British films, there's not like usually the cultural differences aren't as sharp and distinct as they are when I was watching this. So it was a really interesting experience.
I mean, if you think about like Assault on Precinct 13, that's I
Yeah,
suppose what it's like.
yeah,
What the tone of that film is, and what the tone of this film is zombie movie essentially. You know, it's instead of zombies, they're people, they never speak, and they're en masse. You don't know who any of them are. None of them are important. And in a way, zombie movies are a bit more like sort of disaster movies. You know, there's an earthquake coming, there's waves coming. How are we going to stop and sort of survive us in this situation? And if you watch Assault on Precinct 13, people shoot guns, but like not really at anyone. They sort of come through windows, shooting them in the ceiling. They sort of come, and it's almost like they're sort of zombies, and the guns are scary. But really, only one who shoots anyone to kill anyone is the good guys shooting the bad guys. You know,
yeah,
I think if you were doing this in America with guns, it would either be over too soon, or you wouldn't understand how it was over too soon, or the jeopardy would seem too real. I feel also if the characters got guns, they're going to be looking like characters, whereas my Phantom Army, they were, like I said, they were more like zombies, you know, faceless mass of people who might go online and abuse people rather than actual characters.
yeah. It created this sort of interesting, like it was almost more like a riot than like a deliberate specific crime.
Yeah.
They didn't really seem like they had a strong precise goal, at least for most of the movie, and it seemed more like they just sort of wanted to wreck shit for the sake of wrecking shit. Which by pure coincidence is something that happens to be going on in Britain at the moment when we're recording this.
Yeah. Yeah, I was luckily, it looks like we've sort of turned the corner with that one, and the anti-racists are now outnumbering the racists at the rallies, and we've sort of things have got a lot better. Last week, I was even going to suggest maybe we push the podcast back a bit because of how sort of pertinent it has become. Yeah,
Yes.
and this is what they are like. These racist thugs here, that's what they're doing. They're going online. They're saying, you know, let's go to this town who, you know, sort of voted against our interest, and we're going to smash up their shops, and we're going to break their things, and we're going to shout at them, and we're going to harass them. And then they go there, and that's what they do. Now, they weren't all wearing masks, but some of these like racist guys were wearing masks, and I sort of feel that it's not so unrealistic what happens in our film. Just, you know, these are kids. They're going to lie and go, we need to go to the school. We need to destroy it. We need to smash it up. You know, we need to, you know, feel power again. And that's what, you know, these groups of people here are doing as well. It has become more pertinent in the last couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And just on the subject of when we're recording this in early August. You'll probably be listening to this in September or October. I typically record several months out. So it hopefully won't still be in the immediate news, but we'll see. It seems like your summer of riots is probably going to be a bit shorter than the one we had in America a few years ago, where it lasted months and months.
Yes. Generally, people don't want to riot. And I mean, we're here in Brighton, and we had, what night of the week was it? Wednesday? Thursday?
I want to say Thursday.
Thursday. So Thursday, we're recording this on Saturday, and all the shops shut. The big warning: there are groups of racists coming down. There's groups of, you know, angry people are coming here. And so other people said we should have our own anti-protest to this. And it turned out there was 5 maybe racist men and about 2,000 people singing, chanting at them, and the police.
Oh wow.
You know, the little corner around protecting the racists while everyone in Brighton sang and chanted back at them until they were walked back to the train and off they went. You know, so I feel like people aren't gonna, you know, if people don't like it, they're not gonna stand for it.
That's impressive. That's quite the ratio. Um, and interesting, the singing thing that just reminds me of another cultural difference where I've noticed that in British sporting events, you guys come up with really elaborate songs to sing. And in America, we might have like USA, USA, and that's about the extent of our chanting in that regard.
Yeah,
Um,
we've noticed that. Particularly watching some of the Olympics, as you know, it seems like lots of the countries have suddenly got these songs that they're singing, and yeah, um, yeah. Well, that's how we fight them back, by singing made-up songs about them.
that's great. Yeah, yeah. Thinking even more about the cultural aspects of being a teenager in the two different countries, it's got me wondering. Um, a lot of the fiction that I see in, because like obviously I was never a teenager in Britain, but a lot of the fiction that I see about teenagers in Britain shows disaffected teens being sort of petty violent, like a lot of smashing bottles and maybe beating somebody up and then running away, uh, things like that. Whereas in America, the stereotype is more of a sort of like ennui of like just sort of being depressed as a teenager rather than being um, actively destructive. And I'm wondering, is that an actual aspect of like British culture, or is that just something that I happen to have seen more often in fiction?
Well, I love the British teenagers. What do you think? Are people smashing stuff up?
Sort of.
I think people are mainly loitering around, sort
Yeah.
of like being a bit weird when they're teenagers. As long as-
Yeah, I mean, we have a big culture of just sort of like hanging out in town and on street corners and in
Yeah.
parks. I don't know if that's what happens in America too.
I think
Now
they
I'm
look violent. Like the people hang around and want to look violent rather than actually be doing anything that crazy. Like it's not like you'll be walking down the road or see people in town, and it's very rare that you actually see like teenagers smashing up shops and stuff like that. That's not really something you'd see. Like
okay.
they're just kind of like to stand around in big groups and try and look scary and violent, and they might rob someone on the occasion just to keep their like their egos up, but that's about it.
All right.
Most
Interesting.
teenagers want to be nice and polite, but I guess that's less sort of cinematically interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely a bias in all fiction towards presenting the less ordinary behavior and showing the more extreme behavior. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder to what degree the, like you're saying, hanging around on street corners and in parks and stuff is perhaps more common in Britain because you have more walkable cities,
Yeah.
that so many Americans live in suburbs where if you want to get anywhere, you really have to drive. And what age do British people get permission to drive?
17. So
Okay.
I,
So
it's I mean, it's a completely different culture here. You know, in America, you're just trying to get a car, and also you can drive around on like provisional licenses fairly easily, can't you? In America, I think,
you,
where it's here,
you're
not at all.
You can get a learner's permit at age 15, which allows you to drive a car if there is someone who has a full license in the car.
Right.
And then you can get your full license at 16. But
I mean,
yeah.
obviously, this is an outsider, and you can tell me as an American to shut up. My thing has always been the government's thought, well, we could do better buses, trains, metro systems if we wanted, or we can just keep allowing everybody to drive and not really policing how the driving's going, because that's a lot cheaper. That's how it looks from the outside. I don't know if that's what it feels like from the inside.
I mean, sort of. America switched to being an extremely car-centric culture in the 1950s when there was a whole lot of government investment in building interstate highways. And there was an enormous government jobs program that built a huge amount of stuff right after World War II because we had all of these people coming back from the war who needed jobs, and the economy was extremely war focused at the time. And so the government, to try to smooth that transition, ran these enormous jobs programs. And by coincidence, it happened to be that one of the ideas that caught on the most there was, let's build an enormous number of roads. And so there are just huge, vast stretches of roads everywhere. And you can get from any two cities in a pretty straight line. And so that really incentivized getting everybody a car. And then there was also a lot of sort of underhanded things by the car manufacturers, like in Los Angeles. I believe it was Ford, but it might have been another one of them, purchased the tram system from the city and then deliberately ran it into the ground so that people would stop using it and would buy cars instead.
Yeah.
And now it's become sort of an element of American cultural identity that everybody has a car and everybody drives everywhere. And so now, not only is the thing that you said true, but also there's this strong cultural pushback against anything that would cause people to drive less because people are so invested in their cars, which is almost always the first or second most expensive thing that a person owns after their house, if they own a house. So yeah, very, very
It's
different
very different.
culturally.
These two aren't going to be getting cars. Cars are expensive here. And
Yeah.
keep the insurance, all of that is very expensive for a teenager. I mean, Amy's 16, you're going to be 17 when?
January.
In January. Amy passed her test in January and she bought a car. The least it would cost her would be about £500, and the insurance would cost about 1,500. So most 17-year-olds have not got £2,000 to spend. So it's not really here. It's not really affordable to have a car.
£1,500 per
A year.
year? Okay.
Well, I mean, as a 17-year-old driver, it would get less and less as you got older.
Okay, that would be considered a very reasonable rate in America.
Okay.
And a 500-pound car would be like, I would be scared to drive a car that cheap because I would, like, my first car that I bought as a teenager cost about that much. And then my mom made me get rid of it when the brakes failed and I was unable to stop myself from driving through a red light. So I would expect any car that cheap to be in very poor repair.
Yeah.
But getting back to the film, so how long was the shoot on this? You mentioned that you did it in evenings and on Saturdays, so
Yeah.
only a
So
few hours per day, I imagine.
the bulk of what we filmed was April 2022 till like July 2022. That's when we filmed all the stuff with these characters and the young characters.
Okay.
And then we filmed other scenes. So that's all the stuff with the head teacher in her office and then at the gate. That's on about a year after that. The last thing I filmed was probably about 4 months ago. The last big bit was shot in January of this year, which was all the opening with all the fire and all the kids walking through the streets and so on. And, you know, then the openings with all the different shots of fire and so on. So we filmed over a long time. When you're filming with young people, you've got to film fairly quickly because they age very, very quickly. So
Yeah.
we needed to be done by the end of July, and we needed to film everything with them. There are scenes where the phantoms the ending scene with the bombs and with the chasing and when the phantoms are coming in. We did film bits of those back in 2022, but they just weren't so good. So we filmed more of those more recently. Cass here, who was, I don't know, like 5 foot when he was in playing Ernie, is now like 5'6", and he was now playing one of the Phantoms who was attacking Ernie, and we got a smaller person to put on his jumper, and he would chase him in some shots. And
Oh,
he's looking out the window, seeing people doing stuff, and one of those people was played by a much taller him. So that's the advantage, I suppose, of having time differences. You can have one actor playing two characters, sometimes in the same scene.
that's amazing.
The other issue we had with sound, with the kids and so on, was ADR. So I knew, particularly with the outside shot, all the stuff you see in this film, nearly all the ADR is done. Nearly all the stuff that's outside is done with ADR, because it was just too noisy outside. We couldn't get the microphone near it as near as we wanted and get the shots we wanted still. So I thought we'll have to do lots of this in ADR. When Amy came back to do hers, it was fine. Lots of Amy's ADR, you wouldn't even notice it during the film. But when Cass and some of the other boys came back, their voices are completely changed, and they were completely different sounding people. And there are some shots, if anyone can find them, I will give you £10. But there are some sound clips where I've had to change the pitch up, and there are some sound clips where I've had to mix the original dialogue with the ADR dialogue, just so it's a little bit clearer. But my original plan was just to use ADR and shots, and it sounds like two completely different people talking. Like in Terminator 2, I don't know if you know about the story of Terminator 2, but all of Edward Furlong is ADR, because by the end of the shoot, his voice completely changed to how he sounded at the beginning of the shoot. So they had to redo all of the stuff from the beginning in ADR, because he'd gone through puberty properly at that point. So
wow.
I had a similar situation, but I actually knew that story before I started filming, so I should have been more on the case. Really.
That's interesting. Okay, so given that you had that sort of major constraint on how you were filming, why the big delays between? It sounds like you had like a block of film of time that you spent filming, and then a break, and then another block, and then a break, etc. Why the delays?
So one reason is because they all go on their summer holidays for 2 months, 6 weeks. So it's a bit hard there to people coming back. The other issue was a lot of the problems, ADR problems particularly, you only sort of notice when you get into the editing stage and the post-production stage. And when I'm editing it on my own, working a full-time job, that could take a little bit longer as well. So that's why some of those problems came up later.
That makes sense. Okay, so you've completed the film. It had its premiere recently, I believe you told me, on back in July. Is that right?
Yes, it was July the 12th. 12th, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about that. Where did you hold the premiere? How did it go?
Yeah, so in Brighton, sorry, this is going to be, hopefully it's quite interesting for people who don't live in Brighton, but we are lucky. Brighton only has about 300,000 people in it, and we have 4 cinemas, which I think is pretty good going. One of our cinemas is called the Duke of York Cinema, and it's 112 years old, and has been in Brighton since before most of Brighton has been there. And it's a lovely old historic cinema, and we managed to hold the premiere there for about 270 people. And it was good. A really good response, and a lot of people. There were lots of teenagers, you might imagine. It was a real sort of party atmosphere, and people really seemed to like it.
That's great. What are your plans for further distribution?
So currently, because it's made like its money back just from that one screening. We are.
Oh, that's great.
You can watch the film for free at the moment at www.siege-movie.com, and anyone can go there. And this was sort of more of a grassroots filmmaking for filmmaking's sake. I think if I'd become obsessed with distribution when I was making it, or obsessed with distribution even now, if I was trying to recoup a lot of money, I would be having a sad, terrible time. I am happy with the money I've spent on this, and I just want people to watch it. I mean, I particularly think that young people, young filmmakers should go and watch it. I see a lot of, I work with a lot of young filmmakers. I work with filmmakers at universities and colleges as well. And one of the questions I get asked a lot is, what camera should I buy? What camera do you think I should get to use? And I just think it doesn't matter. You don't need a good camera. You don't need to spend money on these things. You just need to go out and just make stuff and do things with your ideas. And I think that, people who feel like they're being constrained by not having the money, not having, the people around them, should watch this movie to see what can be done with a crew of amateurs who didn't know what they were doing. What can be done when you've got like no money and most of your budget is spent on biscuits for the cast and crew. I think that those are the people that really will watch this film and really get something from it. And so I feel that I just want to give it to them. That's why it's just on our website for anybody to watch for that reason. Festivals and things down the road we might be thinking about, but for now this is really, we just want it to be so that anybody could watch it.
Yeah. Okay, so I definitely see what you're saying about wanting it to be just freely available for people to watch and as an inspiration for other amateur filmmakers. I'm curious, like, have you thought about trying to put it on? Actually, wait a second. Do you guys have Tubi in Britain?
I don't know, do we?
I have no clue what it is. I'm not sure.
Tubi? No. Okay. Well, now that I think about it, I think you might not. So perhaps it's not even on the table for you. But in America, especially among horror fans like myself, Tubi is one of the most popular streaming services. And it is a completely free ad-supported streaming service.
Okay.
And it's a really popular one for independent micro budget horror films because they don't pay anything up front the way that like Netflix does when they acquire a film. They don't need to filter. Like Netflix will only take a few films, but they'll pay up front for them. Tubi will take almost anything and they won't pay you anything until people watch your movie. And if you're not concerned about needing to make your budget back or anything like that, then that sort of platform like Tubi or even just YouTube can be a good one because like while I watched it on your website and once I knew to go there, it was a completely seamless experience. I never would have found it. Just I'm not gonna randomly find your website.
No, you are right. I think it's gonna go up on YouTube.
Okay.
Probably in the autumn. It is. Okay. I mean, I've just had a look at Tubi, and it does look like that's maybe a possibility. I sort of in my mind, I've always been just like, it just needs to be for the people. It just needs to be for. I don't need, because I mean, before we started, I looked on Amazon Prime, right. And Amazon Prime will take pretty much anything. There are some terrible films on Amazon Prime that have also been made for not very little money, but no one's looked at them and gone, well, no one's going to want to watch this because the guy's finger is blocking the lens for half the movie. They'll still have those out there, but you're constrained by Prime, what advertising you can do, where you can talk about this film, where you could show it and stuff. So I just sort of wanted to have it still being free. I like the idea of sending it to sort of like other film societies, universities, schools, colleges, and them watching it as well.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
I'd like to send it out to them, and I'd like the opportunity for young people to just see it as something that they could learn from, but also think what is possible. Just something that anyone can watch on their phone or anything. You don't need to have any apps. I've just got it on a website there. But right. I have since realised that YouTube is also the way towards it. I've just had some. This is getting a little bit boring, I'm sure, for everybody in the room now. YouTube has some compression issues that I'm not 100% happy with.
That is true. Yeah, that can, especially when you have things like artificial film grain, YouTube can mess that up.
Yeah, that's one of them, and with the sound as well. And people would just think they won't think it's YouTube. They'll just think it's poor filmmaking, which it's not. When I crack that, then it'll be up on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. I think this was a really enjoyable movie. I'm glad I got to watch it, and I definitely would not have been able to find it if we hadn't, spoken. So you mentioned earlier spending that like this was a very low budget film, and you spent most of the money on biscuits for the crew. What was the budget of the film?
So the film was, production wise, it was about £500.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think
That's very, very cheap.
yeah, I mean, how I like to describe it is it was probably cost about a millionth of what Rise of the Skywalker cost, I think. Is so I'm trying to think, the plan was always to make £150,000 movie for under £1,000. That was always, when I was talking to people about it, when I would talk to, because we got some of the equipment, we would scrounge that from production companies and so on. We tell them what they were doing, and they'd be like, "Yeah, we've got an old camera lying around, we've got an old tripod, you can borrow this." And that's what I would say to them. I say, "Look, we're going to make it look like a cheap movie, or we're going to make it look not as cheap as it is." And so we use lots of sort of tricks for that, because luckily we're in a school. School is surrounded by lots of people. All the masks were made from white T-shirts that people just gave us. We didn't buy a single white T-shirt for that. Children that have T-shirts that they had when they were 8, that their parents are more than happy to give you because they don't want them anymore. So we just asked for things. We asked for the T-shirts, for all the hoodies. I'm trying to think what costume that we spent. There was a Greta Thunberg T-shirt that the science teacher, Miss Cook, she wears. That one we had to buy for a charity shop for about £2. We hired 2 police jackets for the ending, and then we bought little badges to sew on some old jumpers and things like that. But generally, we thought, what do we have? And sometimes I'd have to change the script to what do we have, not to what can we buy as well.
Yeah.
Particularly with the weapons and things like that. What sort of weapons do we have like lying around that we can use? Originally, the character I play, Mr. Bird, was going to get killed with a mop, and just the effects were going to cost me more for the mop handle than it would be to get a knife and to cut a safety knife as I did to get stabbed. Spoilers there for what happens to the character of Mr. Bird.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure I spotted a few times where like in this shot where the person's just waving the knife around at the camera, it looks like it's a real knife, and then when the knife's close to somebody, it looks like it's a prop knife, which is good. Did I notice that correctly?
So with the knife, I'm glad you asked about the knife, because the knife is one of my favorite things. My next door neighbor, Mick, he works in a steel cutting place, and he basically trimmed the blade off a £3 kitchen knife for me. So from a distance, it looks like a normal knife, but up front, it can't cut you at all, and it can't stab you at all. And so we've got 2 identical knives, and another one I cut all but an inch off the blade, and then that's how we made it look like it was attached into a person. There is one prop knife that goes into, well, I won't spoil it for everybody, but there is one retractable blade shot from a knife that I've had for many years.
Nice. Yeah, I wasn't going to ask about it, but since you brought it up earlier, what cameras did you film it on? You said you had 2 cameras. Were they 2 of the same model of camera?
Yeah, well, we had a Sony PMW EX1 and a Sony PMW EX3. So they weren't 100% the same, but they were close enough that no one has noticed that. We were just lucky that they were both Sony PMWs. Really, I'm pretty sure if we'd been given 2 cameras which weren't, we probably still would have carried on, as we were.
Yeah. Uh, so sorry, by you're lucky that they were both Sony PMWs, do you mean that you're lucky that they matched up with each other, or that you're lucky that
match that we could grab, one tape
yeah,
and put it into the other one, and it wouldn't make it, we wouldn't have to mess around. The settings were the same. It was easy to say, oh, look, I'm looking at this camera and you have to do this, this, and this. It made that part quite a lot easier than, the buttons and everything being in different places and so on.
yeah. Okay, that makes sense. When you say tape, do you mean like, I'm not familiar with this model of camera. Do they
Okay, so
actually use like a literal tape, or?
it's on a card. They have their own Sony cards
Oh, okay.
that they use. It's generally, when it came out, you will find the Sony PMW is the camera that everyone wants to lend you, because every production company bought one because it was the best for about a year, and now everyone's moving on. It's not 4K, no one's using them anymore for anything. So everyone has them on shelves, and essentially we were given one with basically the proviso that we kept it on our own shelf rather than theirs, really, because it was taking up space.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I think the advice of just going and asking people who already have these equipments or locations or props or things that you would like to use, if you can just borrow them, I think that's really great advice for any independent micro budget filmmakers out there. So I've heard it before. It's great to hear that it continues to be good and practical advice like that.
I mean, originally, when I first came up with the idea of the film, I sort of imagined it as, I thought, well, you know what it could be? It could be like a found footage film where all the kids are just shooting stuff on their mobiles, and the whole thing is just mobile footage put together. Quickly realised that I wouldn't want to watch a whole feature film that was shot like that. And plus, it brings a lot of questions about why don't you just phone the police and ask for help, or phone your friends and so on. So then I got rid of the mobile phone idea. But I'm saying that because if someone else has got, a mobile phone, why not make a found footage film shooting on mobile phones, doing a similar type of horror film, really?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the actors, it's been a while since you were performing in this film. Have you been acting in anything else since then?
Yeah, we were both in the school play last year. So
Yeah.
have you heard of Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a book. I didn't know that there
Yeah.
was a play.
Yeah, neither did I. They brought it to life, and yeah, it's pretty good.
That's great.
We both did drama GCSE as well, and like there's a lot of like devised theatre and also script work. So been keeping busy after the film.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Amy, what have you been up to?
Well, yeah, basically everything that Cass said. And because I'm in the age range where I'm now going off to college, I did a bit of acting for college auditions and stuff like that as well, because I want to carry on doing acting and drama and stuff. So did a bit of acting there. But apart from that, pretty much what Cass said, because I've just been doing my GCSEs and stuff and enjoying my summer. So not much really.
Great. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask next is, are you planning on continuing with this? Do you want to continue doing this as just like an art form that you're interested in, or do you want to try to make a career out of it?
Probably a career out of it. I'm also
All
interested
right.
in singing as well. So
Oh,
for college, I've gone for musical theatre at a college in Brighton. So I also applied for a college in London called the Brit School, just for theatre there, just not musical theatre, because I wasn't sure whether I wanted to just do singing or just do acting or do a bit of both. So I applied to 2 different drama schools and applied for one for musical theatre and one for just theatre, so I can kind of have a bit of both. So yeah, I think I definitely want to make a career out of it and bring my singing and dancing along with me as well if I can.
that's great. Yeah, it's a difficult field to make a career out of.
Yeah.
So good luck.
Thanks.
And do you think you'd like to do more films?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's something that I'd never done before. So I was really excited for it because, like what Cass was saying, we've done school plays and stuff like that, which is obviously very different to acting on film. So it was like completely different. I kind of thought it'd be quite similar in a way. I don't know why, because it's not the same. But yeah, I definitely like to do more film work if I get an opportunity to.
Yeah. Could you go into those differences a bit more? Like I personally, I'm not an actor. Whenever I do anything, it's behind camera, so I
Mm.
uh, don't have firsthand experience with those differences.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're acting for the stage, you're obviously a lot more in the moment, and you're sort of rehearsing for like 4 months for like 3 nights of acting, and you don't really leave the stage and your character. But obviously, when you're doing a film, there's a lot of takes, and it can be harder to stay in character. So that's quite a noticeable difference, and you can sort of prepare yourself a lot more for the play. You want to say anything?
Yeah, I'd say another difference is definitely like the adrenaline
Adrenaline.
adrenaline rush of going on stage when you're acting on stage, when you're in the wings before, and just that like fuzzy feeling you get before you go on, because like what Cass was saying, you've been rehearsing for months and months before, and it's all come down to just these couple hours on just a few nights. So I think that's a big difference, that it all feels like there's a lot more pressure, but it's kind of nice pressure in a way. It's a pressure that you enjoy, because it's like we've worked so hard, so let's like leave it all on the stage. Whereas with filming, you can, if you mess up, you can start again, which is good in some ways because there isn't that pressure. And I think that was quite good, because for my first film, I was still a bit nervous, even though I knew everyone, and I kind of sort of in some ways knew what I was doing, but it was good that you could like do different takes and stuff if you messed up things and stuff like that. But I would say that it is very different, but they both have their pros and cons, and I enjoy both of them, and I definitely like to carry on in the future doing acting on film and acting on stage.
Great. Do either of you have aspirations to do anything in filmmaking besides acting?
Well, you
Yeah.
do, don't you, Cass?
Yeah, I'd quite like to get into the film industry either which way. I'm quite interested in doing like journalism to do with the film industry. I'm not really sure how.
Ah,
But I'm quite good at English, and I did film studies as well. So I just want to get into the film industry, really.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, my impression is that in Britain there's less of a divide between the lower budget filmmaking aspects of the industry and the bigger budget ones, whereas in America there's a very, very stark divide between them. And so I am really curious to see where your guys's careers progress and how you managed to do that. I interviewed Charlie Steeds a while ago. Are you familiar with any of his work?
No.
Maybe. What's he done?
Gods of the Deep and Freeze and Barge People and a whole lot of other low budget horror films.
Yeah, I know them.
Yeah. Yeah. So he goes into he has strong opinions about the British film industry. I think it might be interesting to you to listen to that one. Um, it's really fascinating. Just it's great seeing young people get involved in this art form that I love so much, and I hope that you continue to stay involved within it, whether you do end up becoming professionals in that field or not. Because while I don't want to be discouraging, it is also the case that the vast majority of people who try to don't end up making a career out of that. So I'm personally of the opinion that more people should be making films just for the love of the art form. And so I think that something like Siege at Noon High, where it wasn't made to make money, it was made because you guys wanted to make a movie, I think that's great. I really love that kind of thing, and I'm really glad that people are out there doing it.
I mean, I don't know how like you, because you're making a film. You're in the first early stages of trying to.
I am, yes.
Yes. For me, I have to make this film. I didn't have. It's not. It's when I have an idea, be it a short film, a comic, or a book, all things that I've done before. They are. I have an idea, and then I think, oh, that's an interesting idea, and then I don't do anything with it. And what usually happens is somebody else will come along and they will make something similar, and I'll go, well, that's great. I'll read that, I'll watch that, and then I no longer feel like I have to make it. But then what happens sometimes, like what happens to Nune High, is it just grows and it festers and it stays in your brain forever. And every single day, I'm walking through work where, of course, Nune High would be set, and all I'm seeing is corridors as film sets, or all I'm seeing are students as characters, and they just won't leave me alone until eventually you think, well, nobody else is going to make this movie. I'm going to have to make this movie. And it was almost the day after we screened it at the cinema, I think it was the first day in 5 years when I hadn't thought about it, in terms of what the film's going to like. It's finally been finished. It finally exists. It's out there. I call it the anti-Edmund Hillary. Why did Edmund Hillary climb Everest? Because it was there. Why did I make this film? Because it wasn't there.
Yeah.
That's why I have to do these things. And so this, at the moment, I've got a few ideas that are sort of floating around my head, but one of those I know will be the idea that takes over my whole life and forces me to make this film. And I think that's the case for a lot of filmmakers. And what sort of worries me or upsets me, and I see people say online, or I speak to people, actual filmmakers who say, oh, I've got this great idea for a film, but I don't have £5 million. And I just think, well, you do it. Well, you just do it anyway. You've got this idea, work out how you're going to do it yourself, work out how you're going to make it. Because I just think these just ideas, they grow and they fester and they stay in your brain, and they always, what could have been will never be enough. And I think there are a lot of filmmakers and creatives out there who are exactly the same. If they don't make this, it will take over, it will consume them from the inside, and that's why I made this film, and that's why I'll probably make the next one, is because I will feel like I have no choice. I have to make this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I totally understand the feeling that you're talking about, and it's curious to me because, yeah, as the writer director, this is your creative vision coming to life. But Cass and Amy, you guys are working on, or were working on, somebody else's creative vision. So, what was it that like got you interested in wanting to make this movie?
Well, obviously, with him being my dad, it was a very nice experience to see his dream come to life. I remember he used to talk to me a lot about it, so I just sort of, I just sort of wanted to do whatever I could to make it happen, and it was a very enjoyable experience to watch it develop over the years, and then see it in the cinema, and now I'm here on the podcast. This is a great journey.
Yeah, there you go.
I think I wanted to do it because in the least, this might sound bad, but any opportunity I have to be on screen or on stage, I'll take it because I love doing it. And like, I saw the list of names of people that wanted to audition, and I just thought, no, I'm getting this part. I have to get this part. And I did. Because I always just see it as a challenge if there's an opportunity. And it worked in my favor, and I had a great time. So I'm glad I did it.
That's great. Yeah, no, I don't think that sounds bad at all. I think that's I think that you sort of need to have that sort of attitude in order to be able to succeed in this kind of field. You have to constantly be looking for opportunities and taking advantage of them. Do you have another idea burning a hole in your brain now, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few. part of me feels I should try and do something like Siege at Nune High again. I like the idea of giving people starting off in the film industry a chance. So I sort of feel like I like the idea of trying to maybe raise some money, and getting a professional crew, but also giving lots of university leavers or people who have just started off film school, people just interested in film who are in young adult who would like to work in it, chance to work on that. I sort of feel like, I would like to, I could show people this is what we did for £500. Imagine what we could do for £50,000. I sort of think that there is an idea we take to the next level. I've got sort of a horror sci-fi idea running around my head, which is sort of kind of a sort of 1984 type thing where everybody has these little watches which have colors on them, and you get a higher color the more value you add to society. And there are some people who are not adding much value to society, and they're not allowed in certain places. And there's some people who are, seen as very valuable to society, and they are given that free reign to do. And I've just got this idea of a character who his job is to find the people who have become red, people who are now offering nothing to society, and he has to either give them a chance to what they can do to make society better, or he has to basically get rid of them. That's sort of something I've been working on, the idea that's festering the most, shall I say, out of the other ideas that I've had. But I'm also exhausted from 4 years of Siege at Nune High as well. So at the moment we're in our summer break, which we don't go back for another 3 weeks. And I'm really trying hard not to start any new projects. I love the idea of not having to do this, and having things off. But like I said about the ideas festering, it will take over eventually, and I will have to make something.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand both those impulses of wanting to be like, oh, well, I succeeded at this. Maybe I can make another thing that's similar and succeed at that again. And also, like, I'm so tired from having done this. I want my next project to be very different.
Yeah.
So that's definitely understandable competing motivations. I look forward to whatever it is you do end up making. All three of you. Yeah.
I mean, this isn't the end, I think, for any of us.
Really. Oh, no.
And even maybe as working together as well, because my rest of my projects will be, probably not set in a school, but then that's right, because we're all growing up and becoming adults now anyway.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so people can go watch the movie now at siege-movie.com. Is there anywhere else you would like to direct anyone listening to this? Any social media or anything like that?
Follow our Instagram, which is at Siege Movie, and our YouTube channel as well is at Siege Movie, where the trailer is and the film will be. When this comes out, it may possibly be on there as well, but it's definitely going to be at siege-movie.com. There are 2 socials, Siege Movie for Instagram and for YouTube.
Excellent. Cassidy or Amy, do you have anywhere you would like to direct anyone listening to this?
Maybe those ones.
You don't?
Nah, I'm okay.
I mean, you can catch it through me.
Great. All right.
Yeah. If people want to get in touch with us through the Instagram, is probably the best bet, really.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me. I really enjoyed this conversation.
It's been great.
Thank you.
Bye, Tom.
Cheers.